What is up, everyone? And today I want to talk about why Donald Trump has a 95% chance to win the 2024 presidential election. Now, before we get started with the video, please hit that like button, subscribe, make sure to hit the post notification button, and make sure to follow Twitter and join the Discord in the description down below. And so, guys, when we look at the electoral map, the first thing to look at is the general election polling. The five-way race currently has the race at 1.7%. Trump leading in the aggregate by about a point, almost 2 points actually. And according to Gold Crown Politics, if you average out the polls from the last month, he's actually leading by 2 points exactly. And so our plus two Trump environment seems to be on the way. And what's actually funny about the percentages that Trump and Biden are at is that if you look at Biden's approval rating, he is sitting at around 39.6%. Here he sits at around 40.8%. And if we look at, for example, Donald Trump, he's sitting at about 42.5%. And if you look at Donald Trump's favorable, he's sitting at about 41.9 percentage points in his approval rating. So the approval rating seems to be correlated to both candidates' percentage in the popular vote. And if you have third-party candidates really pulling this many votes, you could theoretically say an R plus two Trump national environment may be somewhat spot on. So for the sake of the video, we are going to look at my latest model and basically project the election based off of that popular vote margin. If we look here, I have Gold Crown Politics' model. His kind of averages out. We also included demographics in both of our models as well. And I have mine, and the results from both models kind of average out, and we get a final estimation as to what happens. If you apply the same national popular vote from 2020, you actually end up getting a very similar electoral map. The only difference is that Wisconsin actually flips. So Wisconsin on this map is actually Republican still, funny enough. Wisconsin does not vote away, does not vote Democrat, even when Biden wins the popular vote by the same amount that he did in 2020. So that electoral map basically looks like this. Biden's at 293 electoral votes with Donald Trump at 245 electoral votes. And you can see he wins Georgia by about a point and a half. Arizona's a tilt margin. If you look at Michigan, he is about a lean margin. It is less than 2020, though. Nevada is still less than 2020. It's about a point victory. North Carolina is slightly more Republican than 2020. So is New Hampshire. Well, actually, I think New Hampshire drops from its 2020 margin. If you actually pull up the result, yeah, it actually slightly drops from 2020. Even a state like Minnesota, I think, still votes exactly, it votes slightly to the right of where it did in 2020. So even though the national popular vote is still the same, Biden actually does worse in some of these states. He does a little bit worse in Illinois. He does 2 points worse in Iowa and Ohio. He does improve in Utah, which is pretty interesting. He does improve there by a bit. He improves by about 4 points in that environment. South Carolina is R plus 12. So I believe it does get slightly more Republican. If we look at Wisconsin, he does end up losing Wisconsin in that scenario. And so realistically, if we were to shift the popular vote even like half a point to the right, more than likely Trump is probably winning the Electoral College already. And if we look at the C, he's got Arizona, he's got Wisconsin, and he's got Pennsylvania. That would be enough for him to win the Electoral College. So even if Biden wins the popular vote by 4 points, Trump would still be more than likely poised to win. And for some reason, my model has Georgia voting to the left of Arizona, which I don't think would be the case with third-party candidates included. So I think that more than likely, if Biden's winning the popular vote by 4, this is going to be the electoral map, which would be pretty similar to what it would have been before. You could even make the case that this would probably even be the map at that point. And so basically modeling off the popular vote from the last election, the popular vote based out of the aggregate here, Trump plus 2 popular vote. We're going to plug that in and fill out every single state as of right now. But guys, the reason why Trump has such a good chance to win is the same thing in 2016. Back then, I said Trump is DOA. Back in 2018, I used to say Trump is DOA. By the time we got to 2020, I thought he was going to be able to win. However, as the pandemic happened and Biden kind of went up in popularity, I was kind of like, well, he might not have a chance. And by the time we got to the election, I said that Trump pretty much had a 5% chance of winning, because for him to hold the coalition he held in 2020 with really high turnout being the case in this next election, I thought it was going to be damn near impossible for him to be able to win the election. He almost did it. I actually thought he was going to lose Wisconsin by more than this. I thought he was going to lose it by like a point. I thought he was going to win Michigan by like 3.5, and I thought he was going to win Pennsylvania by like 2 points. That's what I had for Biden's margins. Georgia, I did not expect that to flip. And Arizona, I did have Arizona close, but I thought Trump was going to be able to hold it. I just didn't think that the Rust Belt was going to hold for him like he was able to do in 2016. It's the same thing here. Wisconsin, Georgia, and Arizona are very, very close states here. And with turnout expected to go down from 2020, I can't see how he ends up winning these again. I just can't see it. If you look at here, there's a bunch of white working class, votes that he's going to be able to make growth with in Georgia. African American turnout being down in Atlanta is already going to be the defeat in the state. In Arizona, a literally like a half a point shift in Maricopa literally cost him the entire state. So Biden's coalition was going to be very unsustainable to hold. And I think no matter what, pretty much at this point, Trump probably ends up getting Wisconsin, Georgia, and Arizona, to be completely honest. And so based out of those, facts alone, and Biden's approval rating being so low. Now, if Biden's approval rating was what it was at back then in 2020, then I could make the case, okay, maybe he does end up winning, 303 plus maybe on North Carolina. And even that would still be a little bit questionable. But based out of what we're looking at here, it seems like Trump is going to be in a pretty strong spot to win. So we're going to be filling out the safe Republican states, as of right now, these would probably end up being the safe Republican states. If the popular vote is Trump plus 2, Iowa and Ohio would pretty much be guaranteed to go safe, as well as South Carolina and Alaska. As of right now, if we were to go to, keep going, we could see that Florida seems to be like a safe state, and more than likely Texas would also be safe. You could see plus 17, plus 18. Now, Texas votes to the right of Florida in this scenario, mainly because of the border crisis, and the polling averages in all the demographic pools and stuff do reflect that. In terms of the safe Democratic states, Vermont, Massachusetts, Maryland, D.C., and California would more than likely be the safe Democratic states. Hawaii is not even classified as safe Democrat on this map, which is a really bad look for Biden. If we keep going, as of right now, the likely states for Trump are going to end up being these swing states. Trump would end up winning these swing states from 2020, which were ridiculously close back then, and would actually end up being very decisive victories in all of the states. In Wisconsin, he would be up by 11. Pennsylvania, he's up by 10. Nevada, he's up by 11 points. In North Carolina, he's up by 13.5. Up by 9 in Michigan. He is currently up in Georgia by almost 12 points, and he'd be up in Arizona by 10. So he'd be winning all those states by pretty good margins. The likely Democratic states would be Hawaii. It's about a 14-point win according to the model. Washington and Oregon would be 8 and 6 point wins respectively. If we were to go to these other states over here, like Delaware and Connecticut, they'd be, 7 and 8 point victories respectively. Rhode Island, I believe, would still be likely, Democrat for the incumbent president as of right now. And if we go to Maine's first, it is still a likely margin of victory. And that's actually a safe, the second district's actually safe for Trump as of right now. And so we're coming down to the rest of the states. You can see Trump already has a massive victory in the Electoral College compared to, the past cycles. He wins 312 just with the likely states and safe states alone. And we're coming into extra territory here. The model has him up by Minnesota by 3.5. In New Mexico, he's up in the state by about 3.2%. If we look at Virginia, he's up there by 1.7%, similar to Youngkin's margin of victory in 2021. If we go to Nebraska's second, he'd be up here by almost 5 points, actually. So he's winning Nebraska's second pretty easily. And if we go to Maine at large, the state is actually lean, and this is mainly because I project that white voters are going to shift to the left. They're going to trend to the left, so my model accounts for that, because if you look at these demographic pools, you could see the average change in every single state based off of demographics is applied here. And so pretty much I don't have to be going back to the model and redoing the demographics every time I change the popular vote. So that's going to help me a little bit as well. If we keep going to the rest of the states, we have a couple more. New Hampshire, as of right now, Trump would actually be ahead there by he'd be ahead there by like 2.6%. And then we have the last couple states, which usually tend to be deep Democratic states. Illinois is under 5 points. It is a 4.4 victory for Biden. Colorado, Trump is up by Biden's up by 2.6 in the state. In New Jersey, you can see that he is up by only 2.9%. And in the state of New York, Biden is up by 9 percentage points, which, if you actually saw the latest poll out of New York, they actually polled New York City, and Red Eagle actually played around with the election shuffler based out of that poll. And if you actually move the cities according to what the polls had actually said, the state goes down to being Democrat +9. Literally exactly what the model has. I think the model's almost spot on to what his margin was in that video, literally just editing the city alone, not even touching any of the rural counties, which I could expect probably move to the right. So there's a big possibility that New York is under 5 points this cycle, especially based out of that poll out of New York City. And so right now, that would put Trump at 345 electoral college votes to Joe Biden's 193 electoral college votes. So for all these people that are saying, well, oh my God, Trump is expected, Trump is done because, oh my God, criminal cases, or oh, Biden is surging in the polls. It's just, yeah, Biden could be gaining in the polls, but just because Biden went from being down by 4 to now being down by 2 doesn't mean that Biden's going to win. My model currently has it to Trump still winning in an electoral college landslide. If the popular vote is Trump +2, he still wins pretty decisively. Even if Biden were to somehow win the popular vote by about 3 percentage points, let's say hypothetically that would be the case. I mean, yeah, certain states would still be safe Democrat, like all these would go back. New Jersey would still be there. New York probably goes back to being safe, more than likely. You could probably say that these would still be safe Republican. Texas wouldn't probably be safe Republican. I'd expect that, Iowa and Ohio would probably be likely victories for Donald Trump. He's probably on the higher range there, more than likely. And we're going to be filling this out accordingly. I'd say that, obviously the West Coast would be safe. Colorado, I'd say, would probably be a likely state. Illinois would probably still be under 15 just because the state has been trending to the right in the past couple cycles. Minnesota is below a 5-point victory. New Mexico is still a likely margin of victory in this scenario. Virginia is still a 7.6 percentage point victory. New Hampshire, Biden is still doing pretty well there. He's up by about 5 points exact there. And if we look at North Carolina, Trump is up by 4.5 points, which is what the polls have it right now. Wisconsin, Trump be up pretty much by 3 points at this point. He'd basically be up by 3. In Pennsylvania, he's up by 2.1%. In Pennsylvania, in Michigan, he'd be up by 1.3%. In Georgia, he'd be up by 1.5%. In Arizona, he'd be up by 1.8%. And in Nevada, he'd be up by 1.8%. So literally, if Biden were to somehow win the popular vote by 3.5 points, which I even think that would be a good day for him, he still ends up losing the electoral college by 312 electoral votes. This is what a lot of people have the electoral college at. Except the problem is that this is a Democrat +3.5 national environment, not Trump +2. So Trump +2 looks a lot more different. Now, you can make the case, okay, if Trump really makes gains in Texas, it makes gains in Florida, Ohio, Iowa, it makes gains in New York, California, but the rest of the states don't trend the same to the right as the big populated areas, then okay, maybe the national environment could be tied and it's still close. But if Trump's winning the popular vote by 2, he would still be doing very well in the electoral college. He'd still be doing very, very well. Even a tied national popular vote, or even some of these people saying, oh, like Biden could win the electoral college without winning the popular vote. For that to happen, Biden would literally have to lose all these states by safe margins. New York would have to basically be likely. Minnesota at that point would be too. Colorado would be likely still. New Mexico would probably be really close. Oregon, Washington would have to be under. All these states would have to be under. Virginia would have to be lean. North Carolina would have to be over 5 points. And Georgia would have to be approaching a 5 point victory, as well as Arizona. Nevada would also probably have to be lean or something like that too. But then you're going to tell me that Biden's going to somehow magically win the Rust Belt? Like, this would literally have to be the map for Biden to lose the popular vote but win the electoral college. So you're going to tell me Trump's going to win the popular vote by 15? He's going to win the popular vote. He's going to win Texas and Florida by over 15, Ohio, Iowa by over 15, win the Sun Belt by a lot, win Nevada by a couple of points. But you're going to tell me he's not going to win the Rust Belt? You're telling me he's going to be able to, Biden's going to somehow be able to hold on to all Rust Belt states while the Northeast is like significantly trending Republican? Like, that is an extremely unrealistic proposition. I'd even say that Nebraska, yeah, I'd even say New Hampshire would probably even have to be tilt for that to even happen, or maybe even Maine at large. Like, the electoral map would be super funky if that were to actually happen. This would it would have to look like in order for that to happen. So that is a terrible, terrible take, in my personal opinion, by Let's Talk Elections, which I have told him that I should debate him on the 2024 election. He has still not taken up on my offer. Currently, right now, based out of the models that I have ran and discussions with other people, my weekly projection as of yesterday, which if you guys haven't watched that video, please go watch it. And I also had a discussion with Gold Crown Politics and data analyst Connor K about the election. If we were to basically project the election from now, I'd say that Trump currently is winning 318 electoral votes. From the last week, he picks up Nebraska second, and he picks up New Mexico as of this result. And so if you guys did enjoy this little video about how Biden is basically almost DOA and how Trump has a 95% chance at winning the election, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, make sure to hit the post notification bell, make sure to follow the Twitter and join the Discord in the description down below, and I'll see you guys very, very soon.